Content warning. This video contains some strong language and swearing, and a lot of ADHD tangents.
Hello, Ash. I'm Gillian from NeuroPride, and I just want to say thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with us. And so the topic's going to be ADHD and more specifically adult diagnosis of ADHD. So I was wondering if you might be able to give us a short kind of bio of yourself, or the kind of background to you, if that's okay.
Yeah, my diagnosis was a mess. It was, can I swear? I don't know if I can swear, but if you insert swear word here, it was an absolute mess. Because so basically, what year are we? I'm 47 now. I got diagnosed officially with something that was valid in this country last year. And the only reason I did it was because basically I gave up with the lockdown, loss of structure, blah, blah, blah. Everybody was remodeling their houses, doing whatever, learning to play the tuba, whatever they were doing. And I was just sort of festering. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get diagnosed. I'm going to try meds. I'm going to do it. And I knew I was ADHD before because, it's a long and convoluted story. Basically, I discovered I was dyslexic in university when I started to, I was tutoring students who were struggling. And my university had a training program. So you actually learn about learning difficulties and that kind of thing. And I was looking at, the definition, what constitutes a learning difficulty, and I was like, so the lady who was training me was really, really nice, and so she ran me through a wee test, and she was like, yeah, you're dyslexic, you've always been I had no idea, so that was fun, and dysgraphic. And then a wee bit later, like a few years later, I was talking to a friend whose child had been diagnosed with dyspraxia. And she was saying, oh, she does this, she does that. And I was like, is that not normal? And she's like, oh, do you also do this, and that? And I was like, yeah. And so, so I got that. So that's completely unofficial, the dyspraxia bit. And then I was talking to a friend who is autistic. And when they found out they were autistic, they did a lot of research, and they wrote a manual. They basically wrote a whole work on how their brain works differently from a neurotypical brain, which is fantastic. So they sent it to me, and I read it, and I was like, oh, it's really cool. And it's like 60% of it, I totally get it. Like to the point that I was like, how is it even a thing? And some of it is just completely alien to me. It's not how my brain works. And they were like, oh, have you perchance considered the possibility you might be ADHD? And I was like, no. Because, I'm old. Like, ADHD wasn't a thing. When I was in school, it wasn't a thing. When I was at university, it was a thing for white boys to have, who run around a lot, basically. So I was like, no, what? So obviously, hyper-focus hits. I spend like a night and a day on the interwebs looking up all the things, and I'm like, this is a bit. And at the time, I was getting coaching, like life type coaching, and my coach is ADHD. And she didn't know that I didn't know that I'm ADHD. So she was like, oh, you can run the test. They're like the self-assessment test, and it won't be official because she's based in Canada anyway. So there was like nothing she could do would be legal here. But she sent me the link for like the Canadian scores. And I'm like, yes, 100%, not quite. I think I got 80% for one and whatever, but I got 100% for rejection sensitivity dysphoria. So yay. It's that one. And I was like, yeah. And it was just fantastic because most of my friends are a bit younger than me, and Anglophone countries, they got on the ADHD, on the neurodivergent bandwagon in general, a lot sooner than Italy. So a lot of my friends, like friends my age from Anglophone countries, their kids might have been diagnosed or anyway they knew about it. It was known about it in schools. And younger friends, half of them are diagnosed, or because we do tend to sort of congeal neurodivergent people together without knowing. So I honestly have lost count how many people have got diagnosed since I started to go on about it. How many of my friends, because everybody was like, wait, and but that was it. I sort of left it because at the time I'm self-employed. I specifically did not want to try meds because I actually really, really enjoy my brain, and I don't like medication in general. And there was no point in me getting diagnosed to get any kind of adaptations because I'm the boss. I have to, I would. It just doesn't work like that. So I thought that's no point. It'd be a lot of hassle. The NHS here just doesn't, it's very difficult to get it as an adult. All my paperwork is in Italian. My mother is in Italy. I can't get things that transfer across at all. So this is not going to work. And then pandemic, I'm just sort of going, ugh. So I decided to go private and just do it and try the meds and see, And then I found out that I couldn't get diagnosed because every psychologist I was consulting was asking me to involve my mum, who doesn't speak any English.
Yeah.
Well, she's in Italy. She doesn't speak any English. She doesn't have a computer. She's never been on the internet. And she would literally rather push me under a bus than admit that I've got any learning difficulties at all. Because it turned out in the process of this that things had been flagged. I managed to get some of my school reports, which was a miracle. Because again, like somebody had to email them from, very kindly, they emailed them back from Italy.
Yeah.
I got some of it anyway. And I'd never seen them. And this has never been discussed with me. But one of them was something about they managed to get the good grades despite their obvious psychophysical problems. And I was like, nobody discussed this with me.
I think that's quite a common experience. I've seen it, especially for autistic people. I've seen that a lot, that people are talking about the fact, like, I'm like you, I'm 44, so it wasn't a thing. It just wasn't a thing in Ireland at the time.
Yeah, it's just not that. Yeah.
It just didn't exist. I've seen people talking about the fact that when they've gone as adults to seek the diagnosis, they find out that actually it was flagged. There was people talking about it. They were never told. So so you said that having a parent, not having access to a parent was a barrier. Were there any other barriers that you found?
Well, and all my school reports are in Italian.
Yeah.
So I eventually managed to get referred. Apparently, some psychologists do accept people without involving parents or anything, or not having any evidence. But eventually, I managed to find a psychologist who was Italian, so he could read the report, and he didn't want my mum to attend. Which, I'm just like, I'm 47. She could have been dead. What do you do if you're, and also the fact that she did not support me as a child. So because she still doesn't support me now, I should not get help from the medical community. I just couldn't fit it in my head. So this went on for like weeks, literally. And then I find this guy. I send him the school reports. He does the diagnosis. Cool. I score really high. Ooh. I was actually quite insulted because I scored low on impulsivity. And at one point, I literally quit my job and joined the circus. And it's like, if that doesn't get you a high score for impulsivity, like, what have I got to do? I like your toy. What, you have a toy? What are you playing with?
Oh, sorry, it's just a pride bracelet.
No.
Oh, nice.
We can stay here and twitch at each other.
This is what we do for the rest of the interview. Just stay here and twitch it.
After this, I can't. You've got to make noises.
Yeah.
I can't do the heart-shaped ones because you can't do them in rows. So I got like one that it's an octagon. It gets me really angry.
And then there's two.
Oh no, I have to do rows of 3. I have to do rows of 3.
I pop the whole row all in one go, all the way along. Anyway,
sorry.
ADHD people got distracted. Who could have seen that happening?
So I get my
diagnosis. What supports were offered? Were any supports offered?
This is when it gets really funny. So me, weeks find psychologists, give tons of money. I think it cost me about 1,300 quid. Oh, sorry, there is a dog. She wants to join in. Sorry, Salma. It's not for you, though. There is a doggy here. I'm not pretending. She just
That's okay.
camera.
No.
And so yeah, like 1,300 quid poorer, which for me, it's you know, it's not an inconsiderable sum of money. The guy gives me the prescription, and it's like, well, we can do a review after, you know, so many a month. I go to get my prescription. Turns out it would have cost me £3 a day for my meds because they're not on the NHS.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I can't afford $3, like, you know, I can do it every now and then, but not necessarily blah, blah, blah. So it's like, and the idea is that normally in most areas of the UK, if you get a private diagnosis, you can then go to your GP, and your GP organizes what's called a share care agreement with your, so you can see the psychologist, psychiatrist, whatever they are, and they arrange what medications you should get, but the GP writes the prescriptions. So you're only paying NHS prescription charges. So basically the NHS doesn't pay for the psychologist, and you don't pay for the full cost of the prescription. Everybody wins. Turns out my GP doesn't accept external diagnosis of ADHD at all. So I'm like, yes. So I go back to the guy, and it's like, no can do. This is not going to happen. And it's like, well, and he literally said, well, then I don't know what to tell you, type of thing. Because he would have, like, they don't have a system where they do monthly referrals, monthly prescriptions. They just do reviews. So I was trying to find out how much it would cost for me to have the private reviews. Bear in mind, you're paying 300 quid every time they have to write the letter, plus the, you know, the private prescriptions. And I was like, this is me, you know, just throwing 1,300 quid in a fire, basically. And
It's
but then
it's the same here. It's worse here, in fact, because we don't even have the NHS to support us. So yeah.
And then, but it just never occurred to me at the time that the medication could be that expensive, to be honest. It just never occurred to me. It just, because I suppose every time I've had to buy something, it's been like, you know, aspirin or something, not controlled substances. But anyway, so I'm sort of going, well, I've just wasted 1,300 quid and found that the medication really works for me, and I can't afford to have it. And then, but then luckily, my GP referred me to, they managed to basically get me diagnosed by somebody who's NHS. So I have to redo the whole thing again, get re-diagnosed under the NHS, but now I'm fully official twice, and I have the prescription. But again, that was weeks of me going, yeah, you know, I've worked weeks to get this, and now I got it, and it's worth nothing because it can't get me anything.
I actually have a friend with a similar situation here in Ireland where she didn't realize that it has to be a psychiatrist, and I don't think a lot of people do, that it has to be a psychiatrist that diagnoses you for you to get meds. So she went to a psychologist, she was diagnosed, and now she's being told that absolutely nobody will accept it, and she has to go through the whole process again. So it's...
But I think they say, like, before, like, didn't the psychologists know? Like, you think they say, you know, are you aware that we can't?
But they're getting paid, so why would they? So what made you write your book, Going Official, on getting a diagnosis of adult ADHD and what to do with it? That's a mouthful.
Basically, I got really pissed off, like really infuriated about, I'm a mod, I'm a very bad mod because I can't do internet, but on the on a page called the ADHD Gift, and every so often, not rarely enough, like it keeps coming up, we get people that come on and basically say, well, first they were saying I shouldn't be a mod on that page because I don't have a formal diagnosis in this country, even though I did have a diagnosis, but because it wasn't legal in this country, I shouldn't have modded that page. I shouldn't basically be here. Nobody who hasn't got, you know, nobody who's formally diagnosed should be in the community. We shouldn't access support groups. We shouldn't, because we are sort of diluting and so making fun of it. Yeah, and now I kept saying, like, you know, you do realize that in certain countries, if you're black, you're not going to get a diagnosis. If you're poor, you're not going to get it. Like, I can't, you know, I can't get it. I mean, I could afford to get it. Well, I found money to get it this year, but it's not like, in some countries you cannot, because there isn't a system where you can get it. And basically people are like, hey, whatever, I don't want you here, so I don't want you here, so stick it. And it's like, but and I kept having this conversation. It's like, you are telling people whose only support system is the internet community that to basically screw themselves because you want to keep this pure and blah 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 blah. And they literally say, yeah. That got me really furious, and I started to write what was supposed to be a blog post about diagnostic barriers. And I started to do research. I don't like to say, there is racism in the medical community. Shock, horror, sexism and racism and fat phobia are a thing in the medical community. Who would have ever thought that, apart from everybody who experienced it? So I started to write this thing, and it turned out to be like a 9,000 word thing with about 80 references. And I was like, you know what, maybe it's not going to be just a blog post. Maybe it needs to be something else. And then the more I researched it by the power of hyperfocus, the more pissed off I got, basically. That's what I got down to. And also I honestly didn't want people to do what I did and what your friend did, where you just literally, you trust the system, you throw money into the system, and it's for nothing. I mean, it's hard enough, I think, to realize, I can't remember, I think I was 43, 44, that you have been struggling with something that was, if not easily solvable, at least you could have had a handle on the fact that you were struggling and other people weren't. Like, just an acknowledgement.
Yeah, the why.
Yeah, but just an acknowledgement. Yeah, and just knowing, it's like, I'm dyslexic, I'm also hyperlexic, I can read upside down without knowing. But it's nice, it would have been nice to be told, I know you're struggling, other kids don't have to work so hard, cheers for that. And so it's hard enough to deal with that, and it's hard enough to deal with ADHD in a neurotypical society without people shitting on you from a great height.
And you said earlier on that, like, when you were talking about meds, that you wouldn't necessarily have wanted to take them because you enjoy your brain. Like, ADHD is often portrayed as a really negative thing. It's all the media portrayals, all the small boys are just misbehaving. What do you consider the strengths that ADHD gives you? Like, what would you?
Okay, so when I found out about it, I swear to God, I'm not lying. And I am obnoxious. I am the obnoxious person. And when people get diagnosed with any kind of neurodiversity, I'm like, that is so cool. What did you get? What did you get? Because basically, when I found out, sorry, my dog is demanding attention.
All right.
All right, you're not here though. I basically started to run around, sort of yammering, I've got golden retriever genes, which is not the way to put it. I know, but for me, it's just like, how it's just something I am, and I enjoy being, and I really enjoy my dyslexia, to be honest. And nobody goes, oh, dyslexia is great, but I like how I interact with shapes and space. And I don't know my left and my right, and that's a pain in the neck a lot of times, and it gets me yelled at. But I like the fact that I think for me space is more interactive than for some other people. I don't know, I can't really explain it. And for me, ADHD, I love a good hyperfocus. You can't beat that. I mean, it's just the best thing. And I enjoy my company, if that makes any sense. I enjoy being in my brain, and my brain is basically a pinball machine where they might be giant soundtrack, but I like that. And I was very scared that the meds would take that away. And to a certain degree, they do. Like, if I am taking medication regularly, I can't get a proper hyperfocus. I have enough focus all the time, but I don't get that, spending 3 days writing. Yeah, and I miss that. And also I also understand, I'm very, very privileged because I ended up in a position where I'm self-employed. I'm doing something where I'm using my hands. I can listen to audiobooks at work. 6 hours of audiobooks on, while I'm doing something physical.
So you can adapt your life for your ADHD.
Yeah. And it's like I live on my own, so if my place, I mean, I'm not gonna move the camera from this location because my place, like, if anybody ever breaks in, they're gonna like leave 50 quid on the counter and a sorry note. I mean, please get help.
I have no idea what you're talking about. That my house.
Oh no, sure.
Definitely.
Do you have the chair? Do you have the chair? We're like.
I have the
room.
Chair. The chair.
so it's like, I mean,
my partner's ADHD as well, so it's quite the combination.
Fantastic.
What would you tell? Like, you were talking about the fact that you didn't like that these things might have been flagged and you didn't know. If you had the chance, what would you tell your younger self about ADHD? Like, what things would you be like? Go back to your younger self. And I don't feel that you have to answer that question because that might be difficult.
I'm just sort of thinking, and it's like I wish. I mean, it's hard for me because I honestly can't remember a time in childhood when I wasn't unhappy. And I had really bad anxiety from kindergarten onwards, like social anxiety and performance anxiety, which was it essentially was a coping mechanism to, you're not going to forget something if you're incredibly anxious about it. You're not going to speak out of turn. If you don't speak at all, you're not going to fidget if you're paralyzed in fear. So I probably just take myself away at a very young age and just kidnap me and sort of run off into the woods with me. But just, yeah, actually that'd be that. If all I could do is say something, it's just, it honestly does get better because school is not forever. And it doesn't have to be horrible. And and not everyone's opinion actually matters.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
the rejection
and it's just
is the thing I'd tackle, all right, yeah.
But it's like,
what do you think that, like, I'm both autistic and ADHD, and I have found it much easier to, like you were saying about your friend and having that big book, I could probably relate to both sides of it. I found it much easier to find autistic community and to find Facebook groups, and most of the ADHD pages I find are just people with ADHD who are talking or sharing their experiences, which is great, but it's not a community. And I was wondering, and I know there's a community building, an ADHD community building on Twitter, but it doesn't seem to be translating to anywhere else. What lessons do you think that the ADHD community could learn from the autistic community about building community?
Honestly, just please adopt us and do it for us because you do it so well. Like seriously, absolutely seriously.
Just have one autistic mod to keep us all in control. Yeah.
Please. Like the work that the whole actually autistic, that whole movement, the work they're putting out there is just fantastic, and it's informative. It's genuinely helpful. It sort of builds people up. I've seen a few, very, very few autistic people do gatekeeping and just generally be less helpful than they could be. But it just seems like such a vibrant, helpful, informed community. And yeah, I'm too loud. I annoy people too much. I can't go in there. But I've seen my main problem with autistic groups is that what I found is that if you get a lot of people with rejection sensitive dysphoria in the same, if something starts to go wrong, it's like, I think of it like, do you ever used to play with jibba jabbas?
No.
There are little things, and you sort of, if you shake them, they go jibba jabba, jibba jabba, jibba jabba, jibba jabba, and they start to make a noise.
A little noise, yeah.
Yes. But if you put loads of them in a box and one starts to go, and then the other one goes, and then they all go, and then they're all going, and nobody can stop because and it's a bit like that when I found I've been like in major crisis mode because I said something that got misinterpreted, but I was too upset at how the person was upset by what I misinterpreted, and they were upset at me, and then the people that were watching got upset, and everybody was just, and it was just, And the only thing I could do was literally leave and come back 2 days later type of thing. It wasn't something, nobody could calm down because we were too compressed and too agitated, you know. So that's just the thing.
It's difficult, especially with rejection sensitive movie. It's difficult in face to face, but online when you don't know the person, everything, the tone, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Do you think either personally or generally, do you think ADHD communities are important? Is it important for ADHDers to build?
The first thing for me when I got my Canadian diagnosis, which doesn't count. It's the same test. I just distance myself. I can do some. It's just literally, it's a self-assessment, for crying out. Do not gatekeep people because they haven't got God knows how much money to pay for somebody to add up the numbers on the self-assessment score. Please, can we not do this? It's silly. Anyway, sorry. But like the thing that struck me with my first few ADHD groups was how I didn't need to constantly translate myself. And I never actually realized how much automatic translating I was doing all the time. It was exhausting. So just to go in a place where you can sort of, cap something because you're very excited. And then
it's relaxing.
It's great.
It's so, from the outside, I can imagine it looks like bedlam and chaos. But to ADHDers, that's relaxing. It actually feels relaxing to be around people who are just like, oh yeah, and then interrupt, and then blah, blah, blah. It's not relaxing. I have mixed neurology groups. And I don't think it's as relaxing for the autistic people in the group. I don't think they find a bunch of ADHDers relaxing. But
no, that is the thing. I'm always very conscious. There's like, I have a lot of autistic friends or mixed diagnosis friends, and I'm like, I apologize now for what I am about to do and will continue doing.
Just bring us back, just drag us back. Yeah. So
but
I think I could go out on a limb, but I'm going to ask you the question anyway. What do you think of the diagnostic criteria for ADHD?
Well, it would be nice if somebody actually cared about ADHD's impact on us as opposed to the impact of our ADHD on them. I'm just putting it out there. It would be nice. It would be like, can we actually consider what our problems are instead of how we are problems for you? But it's not science fiction. You know what I mean? It's it's better than the diagnostic criteria for autism, which I can't look at without twitching, because that is just, that just wants yeeting into the sun. It really does.
Yeah.
Although I know it's not mine, and I haven't really got a right to my opinion on it is invalid. But it's just But it's the same. Like I am dyslexic and dysgraphic for a very specific reason, and the reason is that I constantly twitch shapes in my head. So P, B, and D are the same shape facing in 3 different directions. You know what I mean? And I can literally look. I can look at if I need to write the number 3, it can take me in an indefinite period of time to remember which way around is supposed to go.
Yeah.
But I had a friend who was dyslexic for a completely different reason. But you still get lumped as dyslexic. You still get the same help. Where his issue was completely different from mine. And how does that help?
Yeah, it's a bit like the diagnostic criteria. Like it's like all of these things are very narrow versions, usually deficit based, usually medical, and as you say, usually about how we affect other people, not how we are affected ourselves. And I think that's an important thing that we're trying to do in NeuroPride, is to show that we're not all the same, we're all different, but there's a commonality of experience. And like we're going to be doing educational videos on terms like rejection sensitive dysphoria, like
did you get told that? Did you get told that
by anybody? Alexithymia, all these terms that neurodivergent people are aware of. Yet the general populace doesn't seem to have any.
But are they though? Because I mean, I have literally lost count. I couldn't tell you how many times somebody came on our page and asked what RSD is. People who'd been diagnosed in childhood, who grew up with a diagnosis of ADHD.
They weren't told.
Nobody told them.
Yeah, they weren't told.
Nobody told them.
When I say we know, I meant the community rather than the professionals around the community. So if people would like to get your book, as
I'm going to hopefully if I remember, if somebody reminds me, you set your timer, I set mine. I'm gonna make it free for the NeuroPride week. It was never intended to be like a for-profit thing. I just want neurodivergent people not to suffer and not to punish each other. So any gatekeepers who wants to get my book can hand it back. You're not allowed. Seriously.
Gatekeeping gatekeepers.
So it's going to be on the Amazons. It's available as a paperback form. I am in the middle of updating it now because I'm trying to get information from different countries on how different systems actually work. Because I mean, ultimately, it's like you can read the NHS guidelines on how my diagnosis should have gone, but that's not in practice what happens. So that's going to be updated, and but the ebook is going to be free, hopefully, if I get sorted out during NeuroPride. And the reason it's on Amazon, I know Amazon is ebook, but the Kindle app is free and it has a text-to-speech function. So for people for whom reading is not great, So I would love to produce an audiobook. Well, no, I wouldn't. I would love for somebody to produce an audiobook, but you know. So that's.
Well, Ash, I just wanted to say thank you so much for talking to us and being so open and interesting. And I think we stayed on topic, which is, somewhat of a miracle.
Wow! Wait! I might need to get retested now. Is it possible?
Exactly. What's going on? But yes, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it. And as you said, it's really nice to talk to people where you don't have to monitor yourself or do that second guessing. So yes, I really do appreciate you talking.
No. Come on, I will be spending the next 4 years revisiting this conversation and figuring out everything I've said. And so will you. Come on, exactly. But let's not kid ourselves.
No, but, let's not lie to ourselves about it. Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, have a good NeuroPride week, everybody.